Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for March 25th, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order. Approve the council agenda. Any agenda additions or corrections?
Mayor, Council, I'll have you remove item 7A from the consent agenda. We're not ready to approve that grant agreement yet, so.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve the agenda with the change. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Invocations, the Church of Latter-day Saints.
The two young ladies up there are coming. So.
Oh, good evening. Just up to the microphone, please.
Don't worry, I think everyone's here to listen to your prayer.
Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're very grateful to be gathered here tonight. We're so grateful for this wonderful town of Hutchinson. And we pray that we'll be able to have an uplifting meeting and that we'll all be able to come from a place of understanding as we meet here tonight. Father, we're very grateful for this country in which we live and for the men and women who fight each and every day to keep this country safe. Heavenly Father, we ask that those who may not have made it, that they can be in thy watchful care. And we say all of these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognition of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight? Alrighty, we do have a resolution underneath there. We have resolution number 15847, resolution accepting $90.34 donation from the Buffalo Wild Wings for the Hutchinson Fire Department Park Project.
Motion to approve resolution 15847.
Second. Motion by Pat, second by Tim to approve that resolution. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Citizens addressing the council, just please come forward and state your name and address. At this time, we are not going to take anything about chickens right now. Later, we could have a public hearing on it, but for tonight, if you have something else to discuss besides the chickens, just please come forward to the microphone. Alrighty, moving on. Approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of March 11th, 2025.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Dave, second by Tim to approve those minutes. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Consent agenda will be done with one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. B is resolution number 15851.
Yeah, that was removed. So that was the item that was removed at the beginning of the agenda.
Thought it was A removed.
The 7A, yeah. That was
He said B.
I started out with
Said
B.
B.
Oh, you said B. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, see, you're doing it right. So,
Gary, you can't.
I almost thought I was at home.
jeez.
Pull it together, man.
All right, start again. Resolution number 15851, resolution supporting the pursuit of a Minnesota Environment and National Resource Fund Trust Grant for funding of the Otter and Campbell Lake Accessibility Recreational Opportunities Project Key. C is approval of replacement of the city Civic Arena message board and accepting Birch Foundation grant. D is approval of chip and fog seal award. E is approval of crack seal and mastic patching. And F is claims appropriation contract payments register A. Does anybody want anything pulled off?
Mayor, we should pull item 7C. This was missed, but it's actually, the low bid is for your son's business, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Matt,
Sure. 7C was the,
Birch Arena.
for the Birch Arena, and it's something we didn't catch when we first went through the packet, but with the low bid being from Core River Science, it's obviously something that I'm assuming the mayor is going to abstain from it, so that's why I wanted to pull that from the consent agenda.
Alrighty.
So there's nothing different or wrong with the proposal, it's just to give the mayor an opportunity to abstain.
Alrighty, I will abstain from the vote.
Make a motion to approve 7C.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to approve with me abstaining. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Claims appropriation contract payments register B. I have a check on there for my business. Did a rock chip on a fire engine, so I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Motion to approve consent agenda 2.
Second.
Motion by Pat, second by Chad to approve with me abstaining. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have a public hearing at 6, but we'll skip down to the Public Works year-end report.
Mayor and council, can I maybe ask you to consider to address new business first, just so, obviously
Okay.
we've got a lot of people here. Mike, or not Mike, I'm assuming you're okay with that, to maybe deal with more of the action items first before we get into the reports and discussion items.
All right, we'll skip down to new business. First reading of ordinance number 25-852, ordinance of the city of Hutchinson, Minnesota to rezone property at Block 1, Lot 1 through 3, our property plat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. We have an ordinance for this evening that the plan submission is recommended approval of last night at their meeting to rezone the properties you see here on the screen. It's from R3 residential to R3 PD. What that would allow was some construction of twin homes on these lots. Right now, they're kind of set up for single family, and the person that's looking at doing this project has an interest in putting up some twin homes. Staff feels that there's a need, obviously, for housing in the community. The planning commission looked at this. There was no comments from the public regarding the request, so staff is recommending approval of the first reading of this rezoning from R3 to R3PD for this development. It's, again, on Texas Avenue. Any questions?
Make a motion, accept it.
Second.
Motion by Dave, second by Chad to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. First reading of ordinance number 25-8353, ordinance of the city of Hutchinson, Minnesota to rezone property at 135 and 145 First Avenue Southwest and 125, 135, and 145 Glen Street Northwest.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a rezoning request as well. As the city council will recall, the city and the EDA has been working for many years on a redevelopment project of the former medical center site that was located at Franklin Street and First Avenue Northwest. That's already zoned appropriately for redevelopment. And the city acquired the western half of that block through the help of a FEMA grant and acquiring some other properties here within the last couple of years. And now we have a developer looking at a potential apartment project at this location. So in order to ready this site for that redevelopment, staff is recommending that this property be rezoned on the west side from residential to medium density to C3 commercial, which is the adjoining land use that would facilitate the construction of an apartment project that will be coming through the Planning Commission for review next month. Any questions on that?
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Dave, second by Tim to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Resolution number 15852, resolution adopting finding of facts and reason for approval of preliminary plat for Elk Ridge Estates.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Elk Ridge Estates is a plat that came into the Planning Commission. That's the first major plat that the city's probably had in the last 20, maybe 18 to 20 years. And it's really a nice development that's been put together. As you probably noted in the packet that I sent out, there was a significant amount of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting relative to sidewalks. Basically, the more we talked about it, the more it was clear that our city ordinance is not clear and does not necessarily dictate that sidewalks have to be put in. So staff is recommending that the development be approved as presented without the sidewalks, and also with a 37-foot street that was a typo in the set of plans that we received previously. And there's a few other recommendations with that. I guess just to touch on it before that, the thought is relative to the sidewalks is that we have some policy documents within the city that basically state that we should put in sidewalks with developments. And then our ordinance, it's clear, doesn't necessarily require that. So at some point in the future, the Planning Commission should have a discussion relative to how we want to implement our policy or discuss sidewalks. And then obviously that would come up to the city council. But here for this project, we feel like, again, the developer's done a very nice job of putting this together. There's 29 single-family lots and 22 twin home lots. You'll notice Eau Claire Street here gets extended to a cul-de-sac. Calgary Lane Southeast comes through down to Edmonton here, and most of the single-family homes are to the north. The twin homes are to the south. And all in all, it's a very nice development of the former Albrecht property off of Jefferson and Edmonton there. So if there's no question, staff recommends that, again, this development be approved with the conditions noted without the sidewalks.
Yeah, as a point of clarification, can you maybe explain, what our ordinance states in regards to the streets that should be having sidewalks and the ones that don't?
Yeah, so right now, the ordinance basically notes that if there's a lot width under 60 feet wide, that sidewalks would be required. And it also notes that if the street is an arterial or a collector street, that sidewalks be put in. This would be considered a local street. Arterial street would be, for instance, like a Edmonton or Jefferson, more of a little bit busier street. And in essence, the ordinance requires, shouldn't even say that, it allows the Planning Commission to decide if they do or don't want the sidewalks on those busier streets. It doesn't require it. I just think it's easier sometimes if we have clarity in our ordinances and our policy to make sure that there's no black and white area. And I think that's something we should look at, and the Planning Commission kind of agreed. I know we have the chair of the Planning Commission here tonight as well, that we should just get that cleaned up and make sure that everything's clear, and thought would be we'd do that in the next few months.
Council, the reason I had him, identify that was that our Complete Streets policy talks about sidewalks and the value of them in every single one of our streets. And so, but the policy doesn't match our ordinance. And ordinance is really the law of the city. And so, as we move forward, that's a conversation piece that we're going to have, especially in noting the value that's been expressed by the public and having those amenities as a part of developments within the community. But like I said, right now, there's a contradiction between our policy and our ordinance, and really the ordinance is what the council should be following at this time.
Thanks, Matt. And again, planning commission agreed and staff agrees with that, as well as we noted that as we went on that there was just too much conflict there. So
There's a trail, correct?
yeah, there's an existing trail on Edmonton as well as on Sherwood, just to the west of this development. Yeah.
Is there a setback far enough for the potential of future sidewalks in that area?
Well, it's a 60-foot right of way. So quite frankly, if you're putting a 37-foot wide street in, you're getting to the point where you don't really have a lot of room for boulevard trees and a sidewalk. So once this is kind of approved, theoretically, that it's probably not going to be very feasible to go back in and put a sidewalk. If you did want to do that, you'd be more looking at a 32-foot wide street and sidewalk on one side. But again, based on the way this is kind of played out, we think that the proper course of action at this time is to approve it with a 37-foot wide street and go from there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Motion to approve resolution 15852, Elk Ridge Estates.
Second it.
Motion by Pat, second by Dave to approve. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. These- Mike, you ready?
I'll be ready in 2 seconds. If you want to maybe cover the governance item real quick.
Or we can do
Logged
it
in.
on the discussion
We start here probably.
for the public here. So,
Okay.
I think it
Just,
was
I think it's important at least to address the public on that, so. I know there's a lot of people here tonight, and I think it's important that, we at least address this. And I know from the sign-in sheet, most of you are here for the discussion on chickens. You're welcome to stick around. There will be a discussion by the city council on potentially a change in our ordinance. I want to make it clear, because there are a lot of people here, it was not scheduled for a public hearing. And so it was scheduled for a discussion amongst the council members. And so I don't believe it's the intention of the council to take public comments tonight. And so I want to get that out now, because we still have some other governance we're going to do. And so if you don't want to sit around, but the council is going to be discussing that. Now, they may at a future meeting decide to have a public hearing on the topic. But I just want to be clear, because if you don't want to sit here for another 15, 20 minutes, you're welcome to leave. But the council will be discussing the options when it comes to it. But I just want to make it clear, it was not set up as a public hearing. And I'm not sure what was communicated to the public, but it was not established as a public hearing tonight. It was set up as a discussion amongst the council members. So just point of clarification. So I love the fact we had this many people here. To be quite frank, I wish you'd show up for every council meeting, because they're really exciting. But I just want to make sure we get that discussion out now. So, go ahead, Gary. So.
Thanks.
Can I ask a real quick question? I know there's a petition or a group of petitions. Would it be acceptable to allow the presentation of a petition with signatures?
I think when you guys get to that discussion point, that's a conversation the council can have.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, Public Works year-end report.
Well, and Matt took my punchline. I thought everyone was here for the Public Works annual report. So, but thank you for staying, for those that are. So hopefully you'll learn a few things. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. A little different format than previous years. I've got 7 slides basically, so I'll make this relatively quick, and then we'll move to our public hearing. But wanted to highlight a few things within Public Works this past year. The slide you're probably familiar with is our core services as a department. The essential services kind of speak for themselves, kind of what we're most known for, as well as likely the critical services that you see listed there. Others that maybe aren't so obvious are some of the basic services, a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, as well as targeted services. So we're somewhat unique as a city in that we also have a cemetery, an airport, and things that we govern, as well as a number of other events. And then special services, we list the Crow River Fountain, which, by the way, will be coming back this year. We hope to have that in place here this summer. By the numbers, I thought this would be, worth sharing. I asked the staff to provide just some basic things maybe you didn't know that kind of stand out as little trivial items. A couple things in particular, middle of the page there, the finished water produced. I was kind of struck by how much water in the 18 years our water plant has been in existence that we've made 10 billion gallons of water. Which is a very notable amount. But a number of different things. Generally, it kind of represents that third to the last one, the daily flow within our wastewater plant. Goes to suggest 1.66 is our average daily flow, but we're design capacity of almost 13 million gallons. So we've got a lot of reserve there, even in our biggest of events. So fortunately, again, throughout the city, we're in good shape with a lot of our infrastructure. Ponds are noted a little further up, as well as the number of boulevard trees. Again, we've managed, and a number of you as residents have probably seen the emerald ash borers. That kind of gets to our doorstep. We've really managed that aggressively over the last several years, and we really are in pretty good shape with it. Quick overview of our budget. So we've got approximately 30 staff that we fund. So there are a number of other city staff kind of outside of Public Works proper. We have about 25, including myself, within Public Works. Additional 4 or 5 positions that we help in funding from customer service, finance, and some of our other areas, with an overall budget of $24 million. That does include our capital improvement program too, which makes up a good portion of that, which is our street improvements, water, wastewater improvements, and things that we do around the city. This highlighted area, not to draw undue attention or negative attention to, but it goes to show, from a Public Works streets, this represents our streets standpoint. We had a number of retirements this last year. So 5 key retirements from John Olson, our Public Works manager. Donovan moved up from the forester role. That led to, and a number of these represent basically dominoes that kind of fell throughout the year in that regard. And at the same time, really were able to maintain a really solid level of service across the city in that regard. Hopefully, as residents, you didn't see much of a change in the service, either from snow removal to the many other services that we provide, leaf vacuuming in the fall, etc. But we've got a really good staff. Again, a number of our more senior staff now moved up from what were entry-level positions, and we were able to backfill with folks that were more than capable. So very fortunate. A few highlights from the past year. Our street projects, and Mr. Reiner and his staff in particular get a lot of credit for last year's projects. You remember May and June, we had a lot of rain. We got off to a relatively slow start, but still finished on time and on budget, which was great. Water, a number of you, if not all of you, probably had us knocking on the door from a number of different standpoints of either doing a service line inventory where we were trying to determine if you had a lead service line. Again, fortunately, as a city, I think to date we've still only identified 1 service line that was lead. We do have some galvanized, and there will be some follow-up action with it, but a number of plastic and copper. Which again don't lead to any kind of further remediation. And then a water meter project. We replaced 4,200 meters around town, did that project 11 months ahead of schedule and about $100,000 under budget. So a really successful project. Wastewater, relatively quiet year. The biological nutrient reduction program is phosphorus focused. We have a second phase of that this year. Kicked off our biosolids project, which is probably our next major capital improvement, about a $5 million project you'll see before you here in the next few months. And then our last lift station project, we did 3 or 4 of those throughout the community, kind of standardized all of our lift stations around the community itself. A few stormwater projects that are noted here, along with one that was kind of informed by the Northside Resiliency Study that we had done just in the last year and wrapped that up. Completed our fence project at the cemetery, a couple of airport projects, including the kickoff of 1 of 4 grants that we received. Some equipment that we purchased, the most notable there beyond the plow truck was the jetter vac that we used reserves and didn't have to bond for. That's quite notable. And then the other I noted just leadership opportunities. We have a number of staff that are involved not only in the Tiger Path program through the high school. We've got 2 staff currently in the McLeod for Tomorrow program, and then 2 that are in the Chamber Leadership program. One in the base program, and then Kelly is actually taking part in the second level of that. So good representation really around the city with staff involvement. Major goals and objectives for this next year. A few of you might be here for actually our public hearing tonight, which is the street improvements project. Dale, we awarded that one a couple of weeks ago, but Hassan, 1st, 3rd, 6th, 7th, and Stony Point is kind of the focus of tonight. So we'll be talking about that here in the next few minutes. Developments, Dan had just recently presented on Elk Ridge Estates, and we're excited to have that coming into the city, along with the landing project, the project downtown here on Glen, that we hope to be working on with the apartment building going in there. The water department service line survey will continue. We've got just some gaps that we're going to work to fill here this summer. So we might bother you a little bit more until we get that complete. We've got a couple hundred that we still need to account for. Curb stops will be a big part of our mapping program this year. Number of repairs, and then a few plant maintenance projects. The wastewater, again, the big thing there, not only with the BNR trialing, will be the biosolids kickoff project that we hope to be doing later this year, and will run mostly through 2026. Stormwater, our Lakes and Rivers project, we have the potential to kick that off this year with the first major project. That was, again, generally about $3 million, most of that in grant monies from the state that we're hoping to put to use. That would be just west of town, trying to capture the water before it comes into town and then results in sediment. And then again, a purchase of property here in the northeast part of town, as you remember from last meeting. And then wrapping up our last study. A few road trail repairs at the cemetery, some work at the cemetery. On the staffing side, we've got 2 interviews coming up next week for our city engineer position. And then really stability. That's what we're hoping for from a staffing standpoint. And then beyond it, school road for anybody that has children at the high school, middle school, elementary schools. You know how congested that can be. We've got a study we just kicked off, more to come on that, along with our Safe Routes to School. Likely a survey that will be coming out on it also, but to just kind of gauge what changes we might make to those that corridor in time. So stay tuned for more information on it. And then some bonding requests that we have in, as well as grant funding opportunities too, that we'll hopefully use to offset some of our project costs. I do want to share too, and I'm glad residents are here to see this. This is always one occasion I'll get questions on. In your full report, in your packet, you've got kind of the breakdown by utility. I put in, for the purpose of the presentation, just the one slide of their aggregate. So this slide includes all of our rates from water, wastewater, and stormwater. As you'll note, we're about 12% below our peer group. So these are basically like communities in size and scope that we compare ourselves to. The source here that I mentioned, A2S, does a bunch of benchmarking. We've used this for comparison's sake for a number of years. So it's good data that we update annually. On the water side, it's probably where we're most notably low. We're about 25% are below our peers. Stormwater is about 15% below. And then at wastewater, we're a tick below average. But as an aggregate, then we're, again, approximately 12% below and substantially lower than when you look at the top 5. And we look to stay pretty stable on that front. Wastewater and water look to be real stable. We're in a very good position financially with both of those plants. The local sales tax you've all supported has been fantastic for both of those plants. The stormwater is probably where we'll see continually a little bit of an uptick as we continue to try to keep our program in good shape with it. But we're very competitive on the utility rates, and we're fortunate for that. So with that, take any questions or comments.
Mike, the water meter replacement, that kind of did a couple things for us. They could detect leaks now, right?
Can, yes, and actually, if I can mention real quick, it prompts me, we'll be rolling out to residents shortly. There's what we call a customer portal. We're kind of doing testing right now with city staff A number of us have signed up, but it allows you to go in and basically track your usage. You can set up alerts not only for vacations if you're going to be gone. You can get alerts on your phone, text, email, but usage, daily usage, weekly usage, monthly usage, just a couple of different levels, just to kind of monitor your water usage, to be a little bit more informed in that regard. So it's something you can opt in. It's easy to sign up. It takes minutes to do, and we'll be rolling that out here likely a little bit later this spring. But the new water meters have allowed us the technology to do that tracking at that kind of gallon level versus by the 100 gallons. So it'll be a lot more precise than it was previously.
Great for snowbirds.
It is very good for snowbirds. Even myself, we kind of monitor. It's my wife and I, and yet it's always just kind of good to know if you've got a toilet that may be leaking or something like that. It'll allow you to hone in on even stuff like that.
Anything else for Mike?
Mike, I had a quick question with John having departed.
John Paulson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we talked the thing earlier with the Otter Tail and Campbell Lake access, that DNR grant. Is that additional to the program that's going on the river right now where they're diverting flow, or is that a different?
The one you approved tonight, that grant will be in addition to, but it's basically a phase 2. So yeah, the one we previously done on the west of town, that's the one we're hoping to maybe actually implement a project this year. The one approved tonight is basically a letter of support. We'll see if we get the grant or not, but that would support basically work on Campbell and Otter that would add piers for accessibility and more access to the lakes themselves. Kind of a phase 2 of what we thought again might be a 7-phase project over a number of years, but it'd be a nice another step.
Have the landowners along that project, have they all been spoken to?
For the second phase or the first phase?
The first phase.
First phase, we generally have agreement with the primary one that we'll be working with at this point. Still working out some details of whether we'll need a second property owner there or not. Looks like we might be able to do it with one property owner. So, and we're close on that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Mike? Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right, we do have a public hearing, assessment hearings and project award for 2025 street improvement projects, letting number 2, projects number 25-02. We have 2 resolutions underneath there. We have resolution number 15849, resolution accepting bids and awarding contract, and resolution number 15850, resolution adopting assessments. Mike.
All right, well, thank you. Me again. Now, for those residents that are here tonight specifically for this, knowing that there's some ongoing or maybe further conversation you want to have tonight, I'll be happy to step out into the hall. So if anyone is here tonight for the project, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions out in the hall here after the meeting. I have some cards here for you too. But again, just a few slides to go over this project itself. You'll note what would be to the, I guess, your right-hand side of the screen, a good portion of Hassan, basically all of Hassan from Oakland all the way down to First Avenue North that we're going to be doing this year. Within a couple of segments off from 1st, 3rd, 6th, 7th, there's not a lot of utility on those adjacent streets. There's a little bit of spot utility repair that we'll do along Hassan. And then I do want to draw your attention over to the left-hand side and not forget Stony Point. We have quite a bit of work to do over at Stony Point. That one really presented itself last year during the heavy rains. Had a lot of just basement drains that drained into the street and has done that historically. And we're going to try to remedy a lot of that with this project this year. So it's a good sized project in addition to Dale. This project, again, we hope to kick off most of it around May 1st. So within the next roughly month, get a jump start on it. But again, for the most part, it's a reclaim project. So we'll take off the top layer of the street surface, rework a little bit of the subgrade itself, and then some spot utility work. A little bit more specifically, again, I note a couple street lights, some other curb gutter, sidewalk replacements. Stony Point, again, as I mentioned, is a little bit more in depth with some driveways and other things that will be getting done. We've got a couple of staff that will serve as our point people out on the project regularly. One will be a new staff member this year that will be joining us in a couple of weeks, and then Chad Moko, who's worked with a number of our projects for the last 20 years. So you're in really good hands with both of them. The assessment overview, just want to give you kind of a big picture of. So we have 116 lots that run the course of this overall project for Hassan and the adjacencies. Average assessment is $3,317.83 with a total assessment of $408,093.29. Again, for residents who wishing to know this, and this is general information if forever you have an assessment in the future, once approved, if approved tonight, you can start making payments really over the next few days, up until November 15th. The final assessment information that we will send out will go out right around October 15th, so this fall. And then after that, we send it to the county, and then after November 15th, it'll go on the property tax roll, and you can take care of it there. And that is always an option for you to put it on the property tax. Just note the approximate interest rate. That can vary some, typically hovers around that 4% mark, but it does accrue interest. So that's sometimes the one disadvantage of putting out there, but it does allow you to pay that over a much longer time frame. The project kind of numbers in particular, construction costs, again, we were fortunate, came in approximately 15% under the budget. Along with all of our project costs itself, we have a project just shy of $2 million. This one will rely a lot more on bonding than our last one, which is covered by state aid. The assessments, as we just covered, factor in, and then we have each of the 3 utilities contributing also. So you see kind of the even match there. So unless there are any questions, we'll look for an approval of the 2 resolutions.
Anything for Mike? All right, I'll open it up for public comment.
For the public that may be here for this project, this is the point in the hearing where you are welcome to come forth and address any concerns you may have on the project or your assessment with the city council. And so they have called that public meeting or public hearing to order, so you're welcome. All we do is ask you come forward, state your name and address for the record.
All right, motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Pat to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, have a motion to approve both resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Dave. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. And again, I'll step out in the hall in case there.
Alrighty, the discussion on amending chapter 93 of the Hutchinson City Code pertaining to chickens.
Mayor and Council, I think it was actually 2 meetings ago, there was a request from I think a couple of you to put this on this agenda for a discussion. I did hand out for you, we did receive one email comment on the discussion that's taking place tonight, along with some additional feedback from staff. And there actually was a handout that was given to me tonight that I included on your desk. As a background, I've been with the city since 2015. This is officially our 3rd time in the 10 years that we've discussed this ordinance, and I think there was a discussion probably 2 years before. So this is probably the 4th time at least. So Chad, you're the senior one of the bunch.
It's the 4th time I've talked about this.
So, you know, the purpose of this discussion tonight is really to get feedback from the council on if there wants to be a desire for any next steps. And ideally, the next steps, if there's a desire to move forward, would be to formulate an ordinance that would allow them, if that's the desire of the council. We did put together an ordinance back in 2019 that was discussed at the time by the city council, and ultimately it was voted down by the membership at that time. I've included a copy of that ordinance. I would say a lot of the comments concerns were addressed in that original ordinance, but it's obviously that was a different council. So any desires to change that would be up to this council. I'll maybe just highlight so the council's aware, the public is aware of some of the regulations that were included in that original ordinance that was considered. The last time the ordinance was considered, they talked about having the requirement of an annual license from the city. They talked about only being allowed in R1 and R2 zones, and I think that's maybe something to think about, especially if we decide to move forward with the schools that are in town. It did allow rental properties to do it as long as there was written consent by the property owners. At that time, it was a maximum of 4 chickens, of which none could be roosters or crowing. It was to be regulated by the police department. There was a requirement for a coop that would have to be separate from, so it couldn't be connected to a garage or a shed or the building. There was a bunch of other things regarding the sanitary conditions, no placing of the waste into the compost bins. One thing to keep in mind, I know Andy wrote a letter, is that the way our facility is licensed, we cannot accept chicken waste in that facility. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that you couldn't use your compost bin to dispose of that. We talked about, the size of it. I think the ordinance noted it had to be at least 10 feet away from a property line, 50 feet away from a residence. And at that time, it did require, I think, written approval from your adjacent property owners. So we also had provisions in there that if a chicken got off of the property and was killed by a cat or a dog, that that dog wouldn't be considered dangerous. And so, if anybody would like a copy of that, we can easily make that available. I would just ask what they just asked for, and we can send you what was put together back in 2019. Obviously, that was almost 6 years ago now. This is a new council. You guys can consider any other type of changes to that ordinance if it's something you'd like to move forward with. Back in 19, the staff did a survey of other communities that allowed chickens in it, or within their community, and I guess the basic response was that it was not a significant issue for those communities. One of the things that they said was they found out from the amount of people that originally expressed a desire to have chickens, what they ended up having was a lot fewer than what was the initial expression. In most cities, they average about 4 or 5 permit requests within the community. And so, like I said, at that time, well, we didn't hear from any communities of it being a significant issue, whether it was a nuisance or whatever. So, once again, that was from 2019. It's not anything that we've looked into since that point, but that was just kind of a background. The purpose of this is really for the council to discuss. Obviously, you've received some feedback. We have a good attendance here tonight of people that have interest in the topic. Really for the council to discuss it. Next steps would be, if there's a desire to move forward with something, staff would then draft an ordinance for the council to consider, or you could go the route of having a public hearing on it where you get feedback from the public. The public that's here tonight, I would say this: you are more than welcome to still distribute comments to the elected officials, whether it's through my office or to them directly. I can say prior to this, we had 1 email that came into the public regarding this topic. So, at least to City Hall. I can't speak for the council members. So, but with that being said, I'll hand it over to the mayor to, I guess, lead the rest of this discussion with the council tonight. So.
I know last time that come up, I kind of was in favor of it, with the stipulation that there was some kind of education that would go along with the permit. And I know, Tim, I think you kind of investigated that more, correct?
Yeah, I've been on the phone quite a bit with other communities, and our University of Minnesota Ag Extension, University of Minnesota Poultry, head of the state, the DNR. I've pretty much covered every base with it. Now, they did a training video, permitting video, and I think it was Maple Grove or Maple Lake, which I've watched. It's an hour long, and I grew up on it with chickens, so I'm pretty familiar with but it explains where the reporting mechanism is if you have a disease, who to contact, we also have to get into, raising them humanely. You know, we had 30 below weather the other day. You still have to go out and take care of the chickens. You just can't let them, you know, so there's steps like that, and it's a very detailed thing. There's a quiz at the end of Maple Lakes. You have to get 7 out of 10 correct, and if you can't do that, you're probably, it's fairly simple and laid out, but I'd like to see that implemented into policy just because I'm not opposed to chickens. It's just like dogs and cats in our community. But there's also people who don't understand we have a leash law. There are people who don't, you know, so we have more feral cats in this community, which has become a real problem. Because people breed cats or let them run loose, they breed. And so we talk about bringing wildlife into town like wolves or, listen, they're eating cats. If they're coming into town, their cats and dogs are just as susceptible than a chicken. And if you have chickens fenced in with a coop, you're probably not running into an issue with wildlife. Where if you have your cat running around the neighborhood, that's a little bit easier target for wildlife. So yes, I've been on the phone a lot with this. I would like to see that video as part of the permitting process. It reports right to the city. The extension would actually do that for free for us. It would take a little time to kick in, but it would kick in about the same time as an ordinance would. So I fully back this, and I guess I'm not a councilman who says, you know, let's hold people accountable. Accountability, we can put this ordinance in place, and if it wasn't being followed and we had a problem, we can get rid of the ordinance just as quick as we put it in place, and that's the way I look at it. It's up to the public to be responsible, and I'd like to see the humane, and if you want eggs and all that other fun stuff, that's great. You know, and I told my wife on the way here, I said, I'm sticking my neck out on chickens, and that's probably not a real good idea. And then I thought about ordering some Jimmy's Pizza chicken to have tonight so we could, but no, all humor aside, I've heard from a lot of citizens and residents that they'd like to do this, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to pursue it.
Dave, your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts are, if I was gonna read everybody else's thoughts that I've talked to in the last, week or 10 days is, they're my age and, they're not for the chickens. I don't say that's right or wrong or in between, but that's their feelings, so that doesn't make my opinions any lesser. It seems like in 19, I think I was the only one that voted yes on the ordinance, but again, I would do the same today, so I don't see anything wrong. I don't, like Tim says, you're gonna have to self-police yourselves, because that's what it's all about, and responsibility. That's been thrown up in my face. People don't have responsibility, don't take responsibility, and I disagree with that comment, because I do know that you take care of other animals, probably your dogs, cats, or whatever they may be, and you're probably as responsible to a chicken as you would be to another animal. So I don't see that as being a detrimental piece to even go there with, but yeah, I think it's worth a try. Communities around that have been polled have not had any huge issues with their projects. Some of them I think the one they've had chickens for like 10 or 12 years and have had one incident. So basically it should be relatively incident free. And I guess if it's fine with me. I'm not opposed to it.
All right, thanks, Dave. Yeah,
I like to see all these people show up. I wish there'd be people that would be this active on other issues the city has. But having said that, this is what it comes to be, something that hits a group of people that are really into something. I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna be blunt, I'm against it. And I've read all these positive things, but I've also, the emails I've received, and my email's out there, anybody here that doesn't have access to it, I'm there. Love to hear those opinions. The emails.
can you lean in a little closer to my mic?
The emails I received were against it. As Dave said, the people I've talked to, people have voiced their opinions, they're against it. And I applaud you people for coming, and I don't know if you're all for it or against it. Hopefully you'll step up and talk, but, and I check too. I mean, Tim, as any council person does, I called all surrounding communities, and it doesn't seem to be a big issue. City of Buffalo, there's fees involved. Since they've initiated, they have 10 to 12 permits. So like you said, many times, not as many people actually go through with it. And then when I look at the way we drew up the ordinance the previous time, pretty restrictive. And I've got Buffalo's ordinance here. I've got not Silver Lakes, they don't have one. I've got Delano's. If we mimic those, I read those and it's like, that's so strict, I don't want to do it. So if we did something along those lines, maybe once you saw the ordinance, not that we've drawn one up, we do have one that can be accessed. As Matt said, you can look at it. It takes quite a bit of the fun out of it. And I'm not talking about fun. I realize with the children here, the FFA, fantastic thing. It's a learning process, but I'm just stating I'm not in favor of it. And I'll leave it at that. I'll gladly talk to anybody one-on-one.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with moving forward with everything in the 2019 ordinance. I'd also be okay with extending it to having 5 chickens. I think 4 is a little restrictive. I'm also thankful with the layout of my yard and the setbacks, there's not room for a coop at my house. So that's great. So yeah, I think we can move forward. We've talked about it a lot. So
Yeah, I think most of it was 6 hens, I think, or no roosters. So honestly, growing up on a farm, I hated going out feeding the chickens when it was really cold out and picking eggs. But there's been a lot of people that have contacted me, and I think that we should at least drop an ordinance and see what happens.
A couple things, just based off the conversation. I think what staff is going to look for from the council is direction on what should and shouldn't be included in that ordinance. You've got the one that's obviously from 19 that could be a starting point. And so the question comes in is, is there a workshop that we have to discuss the ordinance, or is it bring this one back and have that discussion? Is there a desire to have a public hearing? And obviously, there's still other ways for the public to give input on the ordinance. I think that's based off of the feedback tonight, there's a desire to at least bring forward something for consideration. I think what we're going to ask for from staff, mainly Mark and I, who would be drafting that, if there's any certain specifics that need to be included, or if you see something in the current ordinance that you like or you don't like, to
Well, I
make sure
certainly think that we just have to clean up the ordinance, basically. I mean, we've stipulated all the things of classes, education, those types of things, distances, how many hens, and I like the idea of 6 better than 4. That's my own personal opinion. But on the other hand, we just need to bring those things together, and typically the ordinance itself was more negative. We just need to make it a little more positive to the people that wish to have chickens. So I think that's our starting point. As we get 4 different opinions or 5 different opinions, we just go start on a piece of paper right off the bat and make the corrections on that, and then work through what we want to delete and or what we want to add.
So with the turnout tonight, is there a desire to have a public hearing? There's no requirement for us to have a hearing on an ordinance change.
Do we need the public hearing on what we decide on as far as the ordinance is concerned, or we don't have to do it?
It's completely up to the council.
Okay, so if that being the case, are we making the right decision by not having a public hearing and hearing the?
That's, I think, for the 5 of you.
Right, that's really the magic question, right? Are you gonna go forward with an ordinance change without getting public input, which you can do?
I mean, there's what do we mean by public input is here at a meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, they can obviously give that input to you at any time, whether it's through an email, a phone call, a letter, whatever. I mean, I think that's the question that we're looking for. Historically, I mean, if we want to look at ordinances, historically, we don't have public hearings on ordinances. I mean, every great now and then there might be some that's a hot topic that we decide that we maybe do want to have a hearing on. So.
Well, I think that we could go ahead with the ordinance without a public hearing as long as we put some kind of educational piece into the ordinance.
Meaning, obviously, any ordinance requires two hearings. Two readings, sorry. Two readings. And so, and we, anytime we have something that drafted, that becomes available for the public to view. And obviously, they can provide feedback on those. And like I said, and I can get to anyone the copy of the 2019 one that was considered at that time, too.
So we got 2 weeks before anything would happen anyway, so.
Because
we would.
most likely what happened is, if there's a desire, we'd have our first consideration of a reading that would be as early as the next council meeting, which is the 8th of April. Yeah, April 8th, or
I would like.
14th, actually. So
I would like to hear these people came tonight hoping they could say something.
it's
I, for one, would like to give them the floor. That's just me. I mean, they didn't come here for nothing.
It's up to the
I know that's just me.
five of us.
I'm just
Five of
one-
you.
Yep,
So.
I'm just one, but that's
I think I'm never opposed to the public speaking at a meeting like this. I think it's part of the process.
No, there were a few that asked to speak, so.
And I'd be more interested because, quite frankly, we had an ordinance drafted. We've looked at, as far as public safety and things like that, we have a lot of experts who have weighed in on this with extension and people like that. It's factual. I'm looking for more, do you support or do you not, are you opposed to it? And maybe one reason why not, as opposed to a layout where we've already got that information from extension or somewhere like that.
Let's do this, Pat. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. All right, what we're gonna do is we'll give you.
Why don't you count them? So we go. We
Yeah.
see. And the only reason I say this is parliamentary procedure, and I know for a lot of you are like, what does that mean? There was nothing scheduled as a public hearing, and so the public didn't know we're going to take public comments. That's the only reason, and so that doesn't mean that the council can't. You have every right, and it sounds like you have an interest in doing that, and you can do that. My advice to you is to come up with some ground rules that you want to share with those that are going to come and speak. So.
We'll give you 3 minutes each. All right.
timer.
And all we would ask that you come forward, state your
Name and address.
for the record. So.
All right. Go ahead. And your time starts now.
Earning valuable seconds.
I know.
Yeah, valuable time.
Before I speak, I did just want to say, I think there were a fair amount of people that were here to speak on this issue, and the council did say that there wouldn't be public hearing.
Back up. Name and address.
Yeah, Michael Mossman, 525 Larson Street. Again, I would encourage the council, earlier in the meeting, we sent people out saying there wouldn't be public hearing. Just worry about the precedent it sends to add that later. With that said, Michael Mossman, for the last couple of years, I worked at a shelled egg facility in Litchfield with 2 million hens. I'm a graduate of the Safe Quality Farming Program out of Purdue, as well as the Shelled Egg Academy. There's a lot of people in town that have said this is a fad. This is because of high egg prices. This is a lot of other reasons, and I would just say to Chad's former comment, it's the 4th time it's come up. Eggs were $1 a dozen the first time. This is not necessarily tied to that. Chickens provide a lot of benefits to the community. A lot of local communities around us have chickens. They haven't had issues. I think that is reason enough for the council to move forward with an ordinance. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, I should mention, just for the public's sake, what I handed the council members was a petition from residents of the city of Hutchinson. There's 505 signatures there. I have gathered a total of 622. However, 117 asked that they sign, but not have their information provided publicly. So 505 is what we have today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paisley Von Berg, 17546 Zane Avenue. Mayor Fersier and members of the committee, as stated, my name is Paisley Vonberg. If you can't tell by my apparel, I am with the FFA organization, currently serving as the Hutchinson FFA chapter reporter and representing Hutchinson on the regional level, serving as the Region 5 vice president. FFA is a student-led organization established in 1928 which focuses on developing students' potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success. I have been involved in Hutchinson FFA's program since 9th grade, serving on 3 officer teams, chairing several committees, being a part of the agricultural issues and prepared public speaking leadership development events, as well as the poultry judging team. This past year, I was given the opportunity to work closely with the Minnesota turkey growers to raise and present the Thanksgiving turkey to our governor. FFA has given me the opportunities to stay connected to the poultry industry, as it means so much to me as part of my family's farming traditions. Now, FFA is just one piece of what is referred to as the 3-circle model of agricultural education. The 3 pieces being classroom instruction, FFA, and supervised agricultural experiences. In order for students to have full agricultural education experiences, they are encouraged to participate in all 3 areas. If you go to the high school, the faculty will ensure you that our agricultural education classes are full to the brim. Our FFA membership continues to grow, but the area where we see room for growth is in these supervised agricultural experiences. These experiences are a form of service-based learning which allows students to find a passion within agriculture. This can vary from student to student, anywhere from vegetable production to meat processing to classroom education, outreach, or most commonly, raising livestock. With over 50% of our FFA members residing within city limits where we currently are not allowed to raise livestock, including chickens, we are ultimately doing our agricultural education students a disservice. And as members of this committee, it is clear that you all are dedicated to service, serving our community, our organizations, and our country. By allowing backyard chickens, you would be serving our students and other interested community members, as well as promoting growth for the agricultural community, which feeds us every single day. Raising chickens encourages self-sustainability among our community. Every year, the Hutchinson FFA makes a theme to serve by. This year is connecting pasture to pavement, ensuring and emphasizing that agriculture has a place for everyone. Whether it's growing a garden or raising backyard chickens, agriculture connects us. As an advocate for our students, FFA, and agriculture, I encourage you to consider this petition further and allow backyard chickens. Not just backyard chickens, but opportunities for student growth and agricultural growth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paige?
Paige?
Paisley, I'm sorry. You're responsible for the flagpole at the girls' softball fields?
Yes, yeah, we work together with
Just
that.
why I haven't seen you since then, and Paisley reached out a while ago because the girls' softball fields that they built didn't have an American flag. And she felt it very important that they have a flag in the girls' softball area.
Absolutely.
And she put a lot of effort into getting that funded, and with the American Legion and the other groups in town, because of her work, they now have an American flag there. So thank you for that. I'm glad I had the opportunity.
In addition to that, with your educational concerns, if it's something that you guys are looking to put on some sort of workshop, I have really good connections with the turkey growers, and I'd be happy to work with you all further on those educational opportunities.
Thank you. No fighting.
Hi, my name is Tyrena Kallenberg. I live at 710 Shady Ridge Road. And I just wanted to note that I think a lot of the bodies that came here are just here to show support, because the feedback was previously that there wasn't a lot of community support for the ordinance. And I think that that's kind of the messaging and why people are here, I guess, in my opinion. I'm pro chicken. I would love to have some chickens in my backyard. It wouldn't be a this year thing. We need a little helper to grow a little bit, but I also really utilize these opportunities. This is the second time I've brought my daughter to city council meetings, and I think it's really good to model good engagement, and that's why we're here. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm I'm a senior in high school.
Okay, because I called the high school looking for you yesterday.
Were you skipping?
Jim Bobier. I live outside of the city limits, so I legally have chickens. 20926 Skyview Avenue. So I've been raising 6 to 8 chickens for 18 years since my daughter was 6 years old. Never had a rooster. It's been a great experience. My daughter, when she first got them the first year, we got them from Runnings, and she showed them at the fairgrounds. And it's a great experience to kind of get into that. We're blessed to have a fairgrounds here so close as you can do that. Also, my second daughter lives in St. Louis Park. I also haul chickens into her where she's allowed to carry chickens to take care of them. So anyway, it's a nice combination to live here with them and to have a fairgrounds to take them to. I don't use weed spray in my yard, so I have a lot of weeds in my garden and so forth too, but I have a great outlet for weeds. Chickens eat them. And you get buggy tomatoes, carrot peelings, that's chicken food. It's much better than a composter. I get chicken manure from it, and it's for my garden. It's free. Bread that goes bad, all kinds of stuff. It's a great thing to have. The other thing I have to say too, I got a historic Hutchinson thing here for you. If there was ever a city that has a tremendous, should be gratitude towards chickens, it's Hutchinson. Hutchinson technology was started in a chicken coop. I don't know if you folks know Donald and Laura Windorf. Anybody know them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, I worked at Hutch Technology for just under 25 years. When John Geis and Jeff Green wanted to start their company in the cities, they quit their job. There was an old building in Eden Prairie. They quit their job, they went to this old building to start the company. When they went there, it was torn down. What are they gonna do? John Geis said, oh my gosh, I think there's an old building in my hometown where we could start. That was a chicken coop.
Outside city limits.
Say that again?
That was outside city limits.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Thank you.
My whole life, so.
Well, I learned the history too, so thank you for that correction. But anyway, but thank goodness they had chickens, because if they wouldn't have built there, if there wouldn't have been Hutchinson technology, this town would be what, a third this size it is now? Half maybe? I mean, there was 3,000 jobs here 30 years ago. It fueled this town. So, I mean, we should have a 100-foot chicken in this town thanking chickens for being here, because they didn't have a lot of money. Anyway, there's something going on there. And LaVon Anson, if anybody knew her, she remembers when she was 14 years old cleaning the chicken coop before those guys came out here to rent it. So again, we need to respect chickens. Anyway, I guess the other thing too is having eggs, having your own eggs. It's a nice duty for my kids to grow up with, and now my grandkids. And I really encourage you to see if you can work that in. And
Right.
anyway, I just encourage you to see if you can work that in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Council. My name is Joy Schmitz. I live at 1155 West Shore Drive. I too just wanted to address the council. I was a part of the group that got recruited to say the last time this went up before the council, it didn't get approved because there wasn't enough support. That was what was, that you heard from all the naysayers and you didn't hear from the yays. So I grew up with kids in 4-H, and we too had the issue of living in city limits and could have, they could show a cat and they could show a dog and maybe a rabbit. But actually we wanted to do chickens, but we couldn't. And so that was, so from the FFA, and I support them 4-H from that perspective. It's a neat opportunity for kids, neat learning experience. I hear what you guys were saying, and I'm thankful to hear that you've done the research, that there has been a lot of discussion about this in the past. I really fully support the educational piece of it, that, you know, the no roosters, the having coops, all the things to take care of and making sure that we're doing it in the right way. And then I know a lot of other animals that you talk about, cats and dogs, and you know, it takes responsibility of the people, and I think neighbors will help neighbors take care of that.
Yep.
So I appreciate you guys bringing this up again. I was very sad the last time it got voted down, and so I hope we have another opportunity to convince you that this is a good way to go forward.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Tony Stark, 502 Monroe, and well, I'm not a very good public speaker, so I'll make this short and sweet. Some people already touched on some of my talking points, but also I was in 4-H growing up, and that's one of the things that first came to my mind. I was lucky enough to grow up on the farm, but I do know some kids, yeah, cat, dog, and that's pretty much your options. I also remember how lucky I was and exciting it was as a kid to go out every morning. Oh, did we get eggs? You know what I mean? And I would like that opportunity for my children. I also think it teaches your kids responsibility, you know, things like that, just like a cat or a dog would. Another concern I know people have had about it is, you know, chickens on the loose and things like that. Well, my neighbor can have 2 pit bulls, but I can't have a few chickens. Now, I don't know about you, but which one would I be more concerned about if my 2-year-old is in my yard? And, the chickens are out. Or, oh no, these 2 pit bulls that I don't know if they're friendly or not. Another thing is, you know, I think we're all aware that chickens may not be the most economical option. But just like people every year like to plant a garden, you know what I mean? You don't know what your return is. It's kind of what you put into it. But that's kind of the excitement about it, you know what I mean? Also, I think another thing that, depending on the turnout that we have and how many people actually, you know, eventually do have chickens, is something that I came to mind, and I did not know that it wasn't able to be processed. But Creekside, maybe that's something to look into, cost, whatever, to maybe get that facility to be able to dispose of it, because also that would be another opportunity for the city as far as more compost and things like that, you know what I mean? As far as landscape projects and public works and things like that. Yeah, also another thing about the chickens, I would like to see if we're gonna be held accountable as citizens and kind of self-police and things like that, which I think that's awesome. The video, you know, I think that's important, because just like pit bulls and things like that, you got your good and your bad owners, and I already can foresee that. But I think it should be taken into consideration, maybe the public have a little more say in that ordinance and some of the changes and things. I mean, just from my opinion, obviously I'm pro, but I didn't feel like that was very pro. You know, I'd like us to have a little more say in that, especially if we are going to be held accountable, you know, and be paying fees and things like that. Also, I would like us to have a say, because I think the ones that are going to be the troublemakers are probably not the ones that are spending their time at a city council meeting for a couple hours listening to all the good information there is. You know what I mean? I think the people that are truly invested and truly want this are here today.
All right, thanks for your input. Thank you. Anyone else?
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is everyone in the crowd here that's now is pro chicken? Everyone? Is there any anti-chicken? Don't be afraid to raise your hand. It's free country.
Or wait. Is everyone here within the city limits? Live within city limits? Most people do. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
My name is Ann Lomaker. I'm on 7th Avenue Northwest, and this may not be quite the right time for this, but I have more of a question than a statement. I know you said you spoke to people, you've received emails from people have shown up tonight. What is your preferred way to hear from your constituents? What's most effective? Obviously, everyone's opinion should count for the same, but what is our best way? Is it bringing a petition with signatures? Is it showing up in person? Communicating via email? How do we best express our opinion or what we think, whether for or against?
I prefer email. Like, it's really easy. You just go to the city website, all of our emails are published there. So,
And if it's a text, sometimes, I'll be quite honest, if I don't recognize the number, I don't always look at it. If, or phone call, so I would prefer email also, because then I know who's sending, or at least if their name's real.
It's nice to see you here. And that's what we're here for.
It's nice to be reached out to, because quite honestly, and I stated how I felt, but I'm really happy to see this turnout, because so many times, I thought getting on the council, I'd be deluged with stuff. Really doesn't happen. Now, I didn't give you the open to just call me for everything, but I'm surprised, I'm happy, and I'm shocked that we kind of don't get, more people stepping forward.
My main understanding came from posts on Facebook, and I think, Chad, you interacted with one or two of those, and just that people hadn't shown up for it before, even though people were interested. But would you also agree email is your best way to express our opinion?
I like phone calls. I'm old school. I run into people at the post office. People stop me I'm out and about, so even stop at my shop and talk. So,
And this is even more for the public too. If a letter comes in to the council or an email comes into me, that gets shared with all the council members. And I'll use this as a plug. And I tell this all the time, and some of you I've recognized from being in the leadership program, is I tell people all the time, I've seen one person show up at a council meeting and change a vote. And so I think that's always our frustration, is that when we're dealing with topics. Now, I'll say this, it doesn't mean you're always going to get your way. And sometimes I think that frustrates people, as they may show up and the vote doesn't go their way. But we enjoy this type of turnout. This is the way our government was formed, was to be participant. And I realize society has kind of gone to a different type of format, but this is the best way, is to fill a council chambers, whether it's good or bad. Otherwise, like I said, I think the email seems to be the best way for communication with the city.
So, and I think sometimes this issue, big topic, and I probably shouldn't, but I look at like Real Life in Hutchinson, there's so many negative comments on there that it really turns me off. But I do look at it because sometimes that's all we get for input. You look at an issue that's on there, and instead of solutions, it's people venting, and it's like, when there's a problem, Gary, I always kind of feel, Tim, you brought up a million times, what's the solution? Not complain, but so this is great. I mean,
and many of you know I don't have a problem with responding on Real Life in Hutch, because I'm just transparent. If you want to know how I feel, ask me.
You like to talk to him.
What's that? But I take a lot of abuse for it, and I'm good with that, because you're in an elected position, and if people disagree with you all the time, I'm okay with that. That's what we're here for. But it's the whole thing of, we get complaints, and I always ask people, if you send me a complaint, I'm going to ask you what's the solution. And because I'm not a doctor, I'm not an auto mechanic. Okay, I can fix something, but a lot of you are more professional in working with.
Hey, do you got a meeting to go to?
But we have people of many talents in this community, and we don't all have the same talents. So if you're proposing something, understand we might not know exactly what you're talking about. And if we say that, hey, we don't know where you're going with this, use a scientific, a factual, and I tell people all the time, leave the emotion out of it, because we're not in an argument. We're not opposed to each other. We're looking for a solution, and a lot of times, even in this nation, we can't find a middle ground anymore. We need to start finding that middle ground again, or else we're going to keep going like this. So I appreciate everybody being here tonight, and if I post something on Real Life and you don't like it, I'm fine with that, but then let me know where I'm wrong and propose solutions. And I'm more than willing to change my mind. Ask my wife.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. We always get complaints, but we never get a solution along with the complaint.
Rarely.
One of the things that we kind of, here we're talking about chickens, which is just a small thing. We approved a $2 million some dollar fire truck and we had nobody in the audience.
Somebody did complain about it though at the Truth and Taxation meeting.
Oh, yeah.
The hard part, honestly, with you folks is, like I said, when we don't get any feedback, it's like, are we that bad or are things going okay? You really don't know, so when it is complaints, then you start second guessing yourself. But then when we don't hear anything, it's like, well, they must be okay with it. So again, I applaud everybody for the passion you have.
And I would say something about this council, because in 2019, I was here along with Chad, and when this came to the table, there was no one here, and Mike can contest to this. He sent me a petition with 375 names on it. Not one person showed up. I didn't even bring it up, even though I did vote yes for it. But the thing of it is there was zero support at that particular point in time. So this is great to see, and see people follow through with what they believe in and feel about it. So it's great to do this, by all means.
I'll just add, the comment was made about input into the ordinance, and once again, I brought my business cards out so people that are here can grab it and they can email at least me, and I'll make sure that gets passed on to the council. But even for those that are watching on TV, my email is mjaunich@hutchinsonmn.gov. Yeah, and you can get that on the website. But when it comes to policy, the public is always more than welcome to provide feedback and input into policy decisions, into ordinances, and those are things that will be considered by the staff. And for those that would like to get a copy of the 2019 ordinance, once again, just email me and I'll send you a copy of that to you. But once again, we'll take that input. That will get considered by the policymakers, which are the 5 council members here, and whether or not there's a desire to add or subtract anything from ordinance ultimately will come down to the council. And once again, that's where that valuable feedback is from the public on how that's laid out. So
thank you for your time.
Yep. So, yeah, the best, probably if you email Matt can pass it on to the rest of us.
And I will say, when we do get to the point of when we're considering an ordinance, that will get posted on our website too. So that will be, and quite frankly, all of our council packets, you can go in and look at anything that the council sees for any meeting online. Our council packets go all the way back, I think, to the 90s at least, if not farther. So you can go back and
very exciting reading
information.
So this is the second biggest crowd that I've had in the 17 years I've been on council. The biggest one was in 2009 where I was misquoted in the Hutch Leader, and the quote led people to think that I wanted to close the senior center. And we had 70 seniors come in here to tell me that they did not want the senior center closed.
Talk about an angry crowd.
Well, because at the time that was my second year on council, and I was like 29 years old, and yeah, it was ugly. But we calmed them down and just said if we sold the event center, we needed to find a place for the senior center to be, but that's not the way the quote read. So thanks for showing up.
I dare you to make the comment about stopping the leaf pickup.
Yeah.
Dare you.
Yeah.
The pickleballers aren't far behind.
All right, we're gonna move on here. We got staff update. Mike, you have anything else? Nothing about chickens? Are you sure? Okay. All right, Mark, do you have anything for us?
Nothing else tonight.
All right, Dave, let's start with you.
I haven't had any meetings. They'll happen next week, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Something.
Pat.
EDA meeting tomorrow, so I haven't had any meetings to update. Our public arts haven't had a meeting. Bike patrol, we haven't had a meeting. We're all on extra committees, so, but the meetings haven't come up, so enjoy the weather the next few days.
Chad.
So I had a Parks Board meeting at the beginning of the month, but I missed last meeting, so we're doing some work at the Civic Arena to get the cooling system working better, and other than that, it's pretty quiet at the Parks Department, other than getting ready for the season.
All right. Matt?
I don't have a whole lot. You know, I did share last week with the council some of the legislation that's going on in the state regarding housing. I have reached out to both Senator Grunhagen and Representative Gilman. I did get positive responses from both of them, but I have shared our concerns on just kind of the one issue, or one, I can't think of the word, of just kind of a single legislation to address everybody, and I think it just has negative impacts on different communities, and so, but that'll be something we'll keep an eye on. But other than that, nothing else new for me. So,
Well, you know, it's funny, I got 3 extra committees I'm on, and usually it always ends up on the 3rd week. So, first was the HRA, the Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority. Just, we take care of Park Towers, and there's vacancies at Park Towers, and the other thing that we look at is, which I find quite interesting. This is for January. We had 15 new listings in town for houses for sale, and we had 14 that closed. Total inventory for houses in Hutch for sale right now is 30. So, and that was as January. Then I had resource allocation. Just talked about some of the projects and that you kind of heard tonight. And we get an update from the park and from the development and public works. Then had the airport commission meeting, which we were talking about having a new consultant kind of looking for, had a couple good people for consulting issues out there, so we're gonna pick one of them. Besides that,
I would like to add one thing, if I may, Mayor. I promised myself I wouldn't forget this tonight, but if you're a veteran, the Elks Club on Saturday, which is the 29th, is that the Saturday?
Yep.
They have a free meal for veterans and their spouses from 11 to 1. So if that fits into your program and you can get there, and the people that are watching on the screen on their home TVs or whatnot, they really relish if you would come. They would embellish that greatly. So
It's a free meal. There were 60.
a free meal, yeah, free meal. So they are doing some good things over at the Elks Club, but that's just an FYI. So
okay.
Mayor, and
Thank
I
you.
just want to add too, based off of what happened tonight, and we told people we weren't going to have a public hearing. I think that's something the council, when you do get to the point of a draft ordinance that you're going to consider, I would maybe just at least provide an opportunity for potentially some additional feedback, since we kind of changed course throughout the meeting tonight. So.
No, I agree 100% with that.
All right, just want to thank you all for coming tonight. And Matt has some business cards up here with his email on there, so if you want to come up and grab one, you can. But otherwise, adjournment's in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Pat, second by Chad to adjourn. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.